My name is Angela Edwards, the video technician. The court reporter is Mary D. Morris. We are here to take the deposition of Dr. Ralph Crystal at 870 Corporate Drive in Lexington, Kentucky. This deposition is being taken pursuant to notice in the Pike Circuit Court, styled Tony Bentley and Effie Riddle versus John P. Dye II et al. The date is May 3rd, 2004, and the time is 4:10 p.m. Counsel will now introduce themselves and state who they represent, please.
I'm Jess Baird, and I represent John Dye.
And I'm Mike Liska. I'm here today at the request of Billy Johnson for the plaintiff, Tony Bentley.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Crystal, could you introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please?
Yes, my name is Ralph Martin Crystal, and I am a rehabilitation counselor educator and vocational consultant. My address for vocational consulting services is 870 Corporate Drive, Suite 202 in Lexington, Kentucky. I am also on the faculty of the University of Kentucky and coordinate the rehabilitation counseling program at the University of Kentucky. And I'm here today in my capacity as a vocational consultant and not with the university. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling psychology, and a doctoral degree in rehabilitation counseling psychology, which I completed in 1977. And then after completing my master's degree, which I did in 1972, I worked at a facility serving persons with physical, emotional, and learning disabilities, and we did vocational assessments, vocational counseling, job training, and job placement. After I completed my doctoral degree, I was employed at the University of Michigan as research director of a rehabilitation research institute and also on the faculty of the rehabilitation counseling program at the University of Michigan. Then in 1981, August of 1981, I was appointed as coordinator of the rehabilitation counseling program at the University of Kentucky and have been in that capacity since that time. The rehabilitation counseling program trains individuals to work with people who have disabilities in terms of the same things that I said that I did when I was practicing in this field as a rehabilitation counselor. And I've been doing vocational consulting work activities for approximately 16 years now, 17 years. And I conduct studies of employability in matters of personal injury cases, worker compensation cases, long-term disability, employment law cases, wrongful death, domestic relations matters, and similar types of cases. And I do that for both plaintiffs and defendants. And I've also been on the roster of vocational witnesses with the Office of Hearings and Appeals of the Social Security Administration for about 15 years now, and periodically appear in Social Security disability hearings. So that's a brief summary of my background.
Mr. Crystal, why don't you tell the ladies and gentlemen what exactly it is that a vocational consultant does?
Well, in my capacity, what I do is to evaluate. Are you getting the? Okay, let me just put the microphone on. What I do is to evaluate people who've been displaced from the job market for one reason or another. It can be because of an injury, it can be because of a disability, and the evaluation of someone who's been displaced from the job market typically consists of three parts of the things that I do. One would be to meet with the person, to interview that person, to get background information regarding the person's age, education, employment, work experience. Second component is to do vocational testing to determine a person's academic, intellectual, and aptitude functioning abilities. And I do that in order to be able to make recommendations regarding alternate jobs if it's determined that the individual is unable to engage in the past work that he or she did. And then a vocational consultant then relies upon the objective information found in medical reports provided to me by that are from physicians and/or psychologists in certain cases, to determine what the physical and/or mental abilities of the person are. And then on the basis of those three components, the interview, the testing, the review of the background information, then I typically, as a vocational consultant, would make recommendations and provide opinions regarding the employability of the individual in terms of whether that person can do the work he or she did in the past, whether they can do other work, and whether they would be able to benefit from training, some sort of vocational training, and in certain instances, whether indeed the person can even work because of the severity of the disability that they might have. So that's what a vocational consultant typically does. Occasionally, I'm asked to assist with doing vocational counseling and also assist with actual placement of people with disabilities into employment. But that typically would be what the vocational consultant does.
Do you have a copy of your curriculum vitae we can attach to your deposition here today?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, kind of down to what we're here for, have you or persons in your office interviewed a man by the name of Tony Bentley at my request?
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
Mr. Bentley was evaluated on April 12th and 14th of 2004.
What was the purpose of that interview?
I was asked to evaluate his employability and whether he could do jobs in the economy.
Now, in your interview of Mr. Bentley, what type of information did you get from him that was helpful to you in performing your evaluation?
Well, as I said before, the basic the part of the interview, which I conducted the interview with Mr. Bentley, he told me he's living in Ohio right now, that he was born on July 3rd, 1969, that he graduated from college, from Morehead State University, and in fact has degrees in marketing and real estate. He indicated to me that he was originally a special education major. He told me that when I asked about his employability, his academic abilities, he told me that he's able to read, write, do arithmetic, that he's literate. When I asked about his employment, he indicated that he was that he last worked at a company called OSI, which was a collections agency, and that he oversaw and trained individuals to collect on different accounts, and he did supervision and monitoring. He also explained benefits to employees. He helped employees do their jobs, but he told me he did work in supervisory capacity, and he said he did that supervisory work for about 2.5 years, and he oversaw approximately 14 individuals. He also indicated to me that prior to that, he operated an over-the-road truck, and that he had a CDL, and that he had to load and unload the truck. He told me that he worked for a steakhouse for 3 years, and he was a manager during that time period. He said he worked with customers and worked with employees and worked with different vendors. That he also told me that he had worked, when he was at Morehead, he did various types of jobs, clerical jobs. He also told me that he worked as a bouncer once and tended bar when he was at Morehead. He indicated to me that he has experience working in Germany for a number of years with his stepfather, and that he was an area sales manager for Sony Electronics and oversaw 8 individuals. And he also worked for the Armed Forces Exchange Program as a salesperson. So those are the jobs that Mr. Bentley described to me.
Did you also review information provided to you by my office?
Yes, I did.
Could you just tell the jury a little bit about what you received from me and what was the purpose of your reviewing this information?
Yes. When I do an evaluation, my office requests all of the background reports and information which would be available. And those would include various interrogatories. There were also the police report and accident photographs. I had income tax records from Mr. Bentley. There were diagnostic studies, and there were records from Pikeville Methodist Hospital. I had records from Dr. Chester Turner. There were also records from a chiropractor from Chiropractic Orthopedics of Cincinnati. I had records from Dr. Timothy Smith. I had pharmacy records, and I also had a deposition of Dr. Gilbert, Dr. John Gilbert, as well as medical records from Dr. Gilbert. And I had a report and a deposition, several reports and deposition from Dr. Zerger. And then I had depositions from Mr. John Dye, and I had Mr. Bentley's deposition. So those were the records that I had to review.
Okay, and in reviewing these records, did you obtain any information that was useful to you in your in your job as a consultant?
Yes, when I do an evaluation like this, and what others who do these types of evaluations do, is that we rely upon physicians to tell us what, in the physician's opinion, the person can and cannot do from a physical point of view. I'm not qualified, I'm not a physician, so I'm not qualified to discuss whether the injury the person had would lead to the level of pain that the person says they now have. I'm not qualified to give medical diagnoses, but what I do is to look at statements that physicians make regarding physical workabilities, and then I would translate those physical workabilities in terms of jobs that would comply with those abilities. And the reports that I had, which I looked at in terms of determining whether Mr. Bentley had any limitations or restrictions, I had the deposition of Dr. Gilbert, and what I gleaned from Dr. Gilbert's deposition is that he noted that Mr. Bentley requires surgery, and that would be neck surgery, and that he also stated that, in his opinion, Mr. Bentley's condition could cause pain. Now, in terms of what that would tell me, Dr. Gilbert didn't specifically address actual abilities, such as physical abilities, such as saying something to the effect of, well, Mr. Bentley can lift only 20 pounds or lift 30 pounds or should be able to alternate positions sitting or standing. Dr. Gilbert didn't address those issues. He didn't address what Mr. Bentley can and cannot do. Now, from my experience in these types of situations, I know from the work that I've done that some people have surgery and they do well in surgery and they go back to work and they can continue doing what they're doing, whereas other people may have more problems following surgery and can't work. But I don't know that at this point from Dr. Gilbert regarding what Mr. Bentley would be able to do or not do. Dr. Gilbert also noted that Mr. Bentley's condition can cause pain, and again, pain can rise to a level where it can limit a person's ability to work, but on the other hand, pain can be controlled, and people can control pain and continue to work and do activities. So in terms of what I had from Dr. Gilbert, I really didn't have any information that would tell me what Mr. Bentley can and cannot do. I also had records from Dr. Zerger, and a deposition from Dr. Zerger, and what I gleaned from Dr. Zerger's report is that he did not feel that Mr. Bentley had suffered any injury as a result of the motor vehicle accident. So that would tell me that whatever Mr. Bentley can do today, he could have done before this accident. So although Dr. Zerger did not say specifically that Mr. Bentley can lift 20 pounds or 50 pounds, as I read his report, he's basically saying that Mr. Bentley is the same now as he was prior to having this injury. So in that case, with Dr. Zerger, it would appear that Mr. Bentley can go back and do the types of jobs that he was doing prior to this accident, and I believe the accident occurred on August 31st, 2002. Then there were also records that I reviewed from Dr. Stephen Suskow, which, as I read those records, indicated that Mr. Bentley had been treated previously for neck, back, and knee pain prior to the August 31st, 2002 accident. So that's a summary of the medical reports that I found which were significant regarding Mr. Bentley's condition.
Did you administer any tests to Mr. Bentley?
Yes, I had an associate of mine, Dr. Mallory Bishop, administered various vocational tests. And again, as I said, the purpose of vocational testing is to determine what the academic and intellectual and aptitude abilities of the individual are. And the results of those tests indicate that first he was given an aptitude test battery. An aptitude indicates an ability to learn in different areas. An aptitude doesn't mean the person currently has those abilities, but just the potential to learn in different areas. And Mr. Bentley's results were consistent with his level of education, which indicate that he can be best in a job learned through a formal training program, such as through a college or some sort of 2-year, 4-year technical school or college program. And he was then given 2 tests of dexterity, the Purdue Pegboard and Crawford Small Parts dexterity tests, and his results indicate that he can use his hands and fingers for bilateral dexterity activities. He was given an interest inventory indicating what someone would like to do, and his profile indicated interest in jobs related to manual labor, working with people, and sales work activities. Mr. Bentley was then given the wide range achievement test, which measures abilities in reading, spelling, and arithmetic. And Mr. Bentley scored above the 12th grade level in reading and spelling, and at the 9.7 grade level in arithmetic. And this indicates that he is basically fully literate for jobs in society, certainly literate for his past work activities. To put this in perspective, to have basic literacy, to do entry-level jobs requiring reading, writing, and arithmetic, a person needs about a 4th grade level. To be able to succeed in a formal education program, a person needs about a 9th to 10th grade level. So Mr. Bentley is certainly at that area. The somewhat lower arithmetic level doesn't really concern me, because that's an area that many people regress in. And when you think about what high school arithmetic is today, we're thinking about calculus and trigonometry and things that a lot of us forget once we learn it, but we can readily relearn it if we have to. So he certainly can perform a wide range of jobs based upon his academic abilities. He was also given an intelligence test, the Kaufman Intelligence Test, and in terms of vocabulary and math, and his total abilities were in the average range of functioning at a level of 103. And then the final test was called the 16 Personality Factors Test, which looks at career and personality variables. And on this test, Mr. Bentley's temperaments indicate that he would do well in creative and self-expressive occupations and sales occupations, which would be consistent with his past work activity. So that's a summary of the vocational testing that he was given.
Mr. Crystal, if I can refer you to page 4 of your report, what did Mr. Bentley tell you about how long he was able to sit or stand for length of time?
As part of my, just as background, as part of my evaluation, when I interview somebody, I ask the individual about physical abilities, and Mr. Bentley told me he could sit for 30 minutes and stand for 45 minutes.
Okay, and as you were observing Mr. Bentley, or your colleague was observing Mr. Bentley take these tests, was he actually able to sit for longer periods of time than he had told you he was able?
He sat for periods of up to 45 minutes.
Okay. Mr. Crystal, do you have an opinion as to Mr. Bentley's employability?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that opinion is?
Yes, sir. Well, based upon the information that I had, including the physical functioning information from doctors, primarily doctors Gilbert and Zerga, it would appear that there's nothing in that information that I reviewed that would indicate that Mr. Bentley is unable to engage in his past work and would be able to do other types of work activities. Also, in the report that I issued, I indicated a range of alternate jobs if, for example, Mr. Bentley goes and has surgery and then Dr. Gilbert says that he should only lift between 10 and 20 pounds. And 10 and 20 pounds would be like 20 pounds is about 2 gallons of milk, a little bit more than 2 gallons of milk at any one time. Mr. Bentley is also fortunate in the fact that his academic abilities would allow him to do a wide range of clerical types of jobs. He's got transferable job skills in terms of supervising people and sales work, and in the collections area. Those jobs are in the sedentary and light exertional levels, which really the least physically demanding levels of jobs that exist in the economy. So he could do a range of alternate jobs if he decides not to return to his past work. And by the way, even with Dr. Gilbert, if Dr. Gilbert says that Mr. Bentley can only lift up to 20 pounds, let's say hypothetically, then he could still do the OSI work activities, as those types of jobs are typically performed in the economy. But in terms of other clerical jobs, he could do a range of order clerk jobs and parts clerk jobs, and he could do records clerk, dispatcher jobs, sales work, various types of billing and payroll types of work activities, account and audit clerk types of jobs, and supervisory jobs. These would be consistent with alternate jobs that would be less physically demanding. He could be a customer service representative, he could do counter sales types of work, and these jobs are all consistent with his vocational interests.
Do you have an opinion from the vocational standpoint related to his condition, not just his employability, but his condition as you reviewed his medical records? I'm looking at page 7 here of your report.
In terms of his condition, as I said, I believe that he could perform the types of work that he was doing in the past, and that he would not have a loss of employability, employment options, or earnings capacity.
Okay. Have all your answers given here today been based on a reasonable degree of professional responsibility?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I pass the witness.
Dr. Crystal, my name is Mike Liska. I introduced myself earlier before we began today. Can we go off the record minutes? Well, let me ask you this. Do you have your entire file regarding this matter there in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can we go off the record for a minute while we take a look at that, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
We're back on the video record.
The file that you just gave to me, those are all the materials that were provided to you by defense counsel?
Yes, sir, except for my notes and records.
Okay. You didn't go out independently obtain any other documentation that was not provided to you by defense counsel, did you?
No, sir.
And I wanted to ask you about this one letter from defense counsel. In there it indicates that this is not a compensation case. We do not need an AMA functional impairment rating in your report. Is that something that you received from defense counsel?
Right. I think this was just a confirmation letter, and I never do AMA functional impairment, so it might have been something, a form letter that's used for physicians.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you know why he would tell you that you do not need to do an AMA functional impairment rating?
No, I get many letters from confirmation letters that are really not directly related to the things that I do, but it's just a confirmation letter.
Okay.
And that's all it says in confirming the date of the evaluation. As far as AMA functional impairment rating, I wouldn't do that anyway.
And that's not something that's in your area of expertise, correct?
That's correct. I'm not qualified, obviously, to do that.
That's something a physician would do?
Typically, yes.
But that letter there, that's addressed to you, correct?
Yes, sir. And as I said, it says confirmation letter. And
Okay.
that's all that is.
And it's signed by William J. Baird IV?
That's correct.
Okay. So, I guess anyway, you did see Tony at the request of defense counsel.
That's correct.
All right. And when you interviewed Tony and he went through the evaluation process, you did find him to be cooperative?
Yes, he was.
And he appeared to be conscientious and gave good effort?
Yes, he did.
And in fact, he even told you that he would like to return to work, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then he said that he would like to return to work and is hopeful that the next surgery recommended by Dr. Gilbert and Dr. Wheeler would help him do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what do you charge for your services?
Well, for this evaluation, it was $1,800, and then the deposition today is another $300.
Is your time $300 per hour on depositions and trial?
No. Typically, I charge $150 per hour, but in terms of depositions, I normally will charge $300 for a deposition, which can last, in terms of the preparation and time before to look over records and so on, and then the deposition time, it averages to about $300, approximately 2 hours' time.
And you spoke with defense attorney's office about the examination before the examination occurred, I assume, correct?
Don't think I spoke to them. I think all that correspondence occurred, and the setting up the evaluation was done by my administrative assistant.
Did your administrative assistant speak with somebody in defense counsel's office to find out what was going on and what the case was about and that sort of thing?
Just basic information, yes, I believe so. I think whoever called to set it up, and again, I don't know who called to set it up. Sometimes attorneys call directly, and sometimes they have their paralegals call, and sometimes their secretaries call, and when they do call, there are things that she asked for. She does want to know what kind of case it is, whether it's a domestic relations matter or worker compensation or whatever it might be, personal injury. And so she'll get that information, and then she'll set up the time for the evaluation and indicate a time for the report to be due and get other basic information and ask for background records and reports.
And you met with and spoke with Mr. Baird there at the table in private to discuss your testimony even before we began your deposition today, correct?
I met with him. I didn't discuss the testimony. We met with him, and I asked him if there are any outstanding records or information that I haven't seen yet.
You didn't discuss what your opinions were going to be today at all?
No, because all the opinions I've expressed are already in my report, so he knew everything I was going to say, and you knew everything I was going to say also. I don't think I've said anything today that wasn't in my report, or direct, or an elaboration of what's in the report.
You didn't speak with Dr. Gilbert or anyone in his office, did you?
No, sir.
And you didn't speak with anybody, or Dr. Smith or anybody from his office, did you?
No, sir. In fact, in order for me to do that, I would need Mr. Bentley's permission to do that, which I did not obtain. I did not obtain any releases or anything along those lines, and I certainly would never call a physician to request information without approval of the individual.
Okay, and you didn't ask for that approval, did you?
No, I did not.
And you didn't speak with any of his treating medical advisors, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And this, again, is just a one-time examination?
Yes, sir. I was asked to do an evaluation of Mr. Bentley's employability, and that was, actually, he was here on 2 occasions, but it was one evaluation.
And you didn't do that until April of 2004, correct?
That's correct.
And this was over a year and a half after the wreck?
I believe that the injury was in August of 2002, and I don't know the exact date he was referred. It was probably early or late March. I'm sorry. Looks like it was, we set this file up April 2nd, so it was just about a month ago.
And I know you did some testing while he was here to be evaluated, but you didn't have any testing that he did before the wreck, by any chance, do you?
I don't believe so. No, I didn't see it in school records, if that's what you're referring to.
Or this, you didn't have any testing that he would have done before the wreck, similar to the testing that you all put him through, correct?
I didn't see anything along those lines.
Okay.
No, sir. The only thing I had was his self-report about his educational experience and levels of functioning.
And you're basing your opinions in part upon what Dr. Zerger had to say, is that correct?
I'm basing it on the doctors I talked about, and I don't make distinctions in terms of which physicians I rely upon. I rely upon those physicians who address physical abilities. And Dr. Zerger, and I tried to glean from Dr. Gilbert what Mr. Bentley's abilities are, as I said previously.
And you indicated that he did not specifically address his physical abilities at this time, correct?
I couldn't find anything in Dr. Gilbert's records that indicate that. Now, I know in Dr. Gilbert I've seen in many cases both personal injury and worker compensation, and I do know that in many cases he does address physical work abilities.
Do you know whether in this case he was just waiting until after Tony undergoes his neck surgery to do that?
That I don't know. There wasn't any indication in the deposition, and there wasn't any indication in the records.
And in any event, you did rely, at least in part, upon what Dr. Zerger had to say, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you're aware that he saw Tony at the request of defense counsel as well?
Yes, sir, that's my understanding.
And he saw him for a one-time evaluation?
I don't know the specifics. I believe that it was an independent medical evaluation.
Okay. And he testified at the defense counsel's request?
I believe so.
And do you know whether Dr. Zerger spoke with defense counsel's office before the examination that he did?
I would have no idea about that.
Okay. And do you know whether he spoke with Dr. Gilbert, Dr. Smith, or any of Mr. Bentley's other medical providers before he did his examination?
I don't recall. I have to go back through the deposition to see if those questions were asked to know specifically.
Okay. How many evaluations do you do per year at the request of defense attorneys?
Well, most of the work that I do are in either personal injury or worker compensation. And in those areas, I would say that in worker compensation, I'm doing now about 75% would be defense, 25% plaintiff. And in personal injury cases, it's about the opposite amount, around 75% plaintiff, 25% defense.
So do you use some of those defense evaluations at the request of employers?
Yes, sir, in terms of whether it's worker compensation or personal injury. That's just the approximate percentage breakdown.
Are there any other entities besides employers for whom you do evaluations?
Well, as I said, I do, occasionally I will do evaluations for plaintiffs, which would not be employers. I do domestic relations cases, which typically there's not an employer involved. Then I'll do wrongful death cases or child cases or cases in which there's, many times in personal injury, there would not be an employer. It might be a physician who's being sued, and I might be asked for one side or the other.
And how many evaluations do you do per year?
Well, that varies. I would say anywhere between about 150 and 200. That would vary from year to year.
Let me get back to Tony, if you will. Your report, I did have a chance to review that, and that indicated, I think, in paragraph 1, that your opinions are preliminary.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that mean they could change if you were presented with new or additional information or documentation?
Yes, sir.
You had also indicated somewhere in your report
It
that...
also says final if I don't receive anything else.
Okay. You were also indicating in the report that nothing in the records reviewed indicates that Tony is disabled from employment. There's nothing to indicate that he has a loss of capacity to earn money. Do you remember
Yes, sir.
writing that statement in your report?
Yes.
Okay. And the records you reviewed included this police report that I drew from your file, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I want to attach that as exhibit number 2 to Dr. Crystal's deposition today. And also, the records you reviewed include the photographs from the accident.
Yes, sir.
I want to attach those as exhibit number 3 as well to the deposition today.
You need to see this.
Also, your records reviewed included the report from Vocational Economics or Dr. Tierney.
Yes, sir.
Recall that? Okay. You didn't mention that earlier when you were going over the list of records that you reviewed. Was there any reason?
I'm sorry, I must have overlooked that. But yes, I did review Mr. Tierney's report.
Okay. And we'll go ahead and attach that as exhibit number 4 to the deposition today. Along those same lines, when you interviewed Tony, he also told you that he has constant pain, correct?
That's correct.
And that in his former job at OSI, he had to stand most of the day and lift up to 30 pounds.
Yes, that's what he indicated to me.
And in his prior job, he had a CDL for hazardous materials where he had to load and unload a truck, lifted up to 100 pounds.
That's what he told me.
And occasionally, he also did the food service and preparation work and lifted up to 100 pounds.
That's what he told me about that job.
And he worked as a bouncer.
That's what he told me.
Concerning his injury from this accident that we're here about today, he told you that he injured his neck, his mid-back, and left arm and leg, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that Dr. Gilbert had recommended surgery on his neck.
Yes.
But he also reported to you, too, didn't he, that he was having pain in his neck, mid-back, left arm, left foot and toes, and on occasion his left shoulder as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and also some pain and numbness in his left leg and numbness in his left hand, fingers, and arm.
Yes, sir.
Would those things, if they were true, interfere with one's ability to work?
Well, as I was saying before, with pain, it depends on the severity of these conditions, and it depends on the restrictions that a person has. So a person can have pain, but they can learn how to deal with it, or it can be only mild pain, or medications can help, or they can have a job in which a person can alternate positions to alleviate any pain symptoms. So there are a lot of variables in terms of the questioning you're asking. And of course, everybody has a different tolerance to pain, and pain can be very subjective. There are many people who are working who have pain and take medication, and they can still work. So it really depends on the severity of the pain that person has, and the tolerance and threshold that the person can deal with.
So they can still work as long as either work through the pain or get the pain under control. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, or have certain job accommodations, such as being able to alternate positions, sitting or standing, to alleviate pain. I mean, most of us can't just sit all day and work. We get up during the day, we take breaks. I mean, breaks are normally built into people's work days, whether you need it or not, or whether you have pain or not. So, work is not always just an endurance activity that someone is expected just to see if they can stand for 8 hours or sit for 8 hours without going to the restroom or taking a lunch break or other breaks.
And he also told you, too, that he experiences, the pain that he experiences affects his ability to think, concentrate, remember, and focus, correct?
Yes, sir, that's what he told me.
Okay, and then he has some memory problems.
Yes, that's what he indicated to me.
The pain is sharp and constant. Is a sharp and constant sensation?
Yes, sir, that's what he told me.
Okay.
This is all what Mr. Bentley was telling me about his pain.
And he indicated that he was unable to climb, balance, stoop, bend, and kneel without difficulty since being injured in the wreck.
Yes, that's what he told me.
And he feels best when lying down.
That's what he told me. Yes, sir.
And he also told you that he's lost some strength in both hands.
Yes, sir.
All right. If those were all true, would that interfere with his ability to work?
Again, it depends on the severity of these conditions. Pain can rise to a level where it can be disabling and can't be controlled. But on the other hand, Mr. Bentley was able to participate in this evaluation. He did very well on the vocational test, which would indicate that he, at least for the time that he took the test, he was able to focus and concentrate. And pain is, as I said a few minutes ago, very subjective. And I think, I'm not qualified to evaluate pain, but what I've read about and what I know about, and when I work with people in terms of job placement who talk about having pain, and when I work with physicians, they all say the same thing, that pain is very subjective.
And you don't have any prior test results to compare your vocational testing to, do you?
In terms of his academic abilities? No, sir. But I would say that his current levels of functioning would certainly allow him to do all the things he's done in the past, as well as related and comparable types of activities. So I would not think that there would have been any loss of abilities, but I don't know what he was like before this injury academically.
On page 6 of your report, under the 16 personality factors test,
Yes, sir?
you indicate in there that none of Mr. Bentley's career theme scores indicate that he could adapt and function in a wide range of occupational areas.
Yeah,
Do you still agree with that today?
No, that would mean that means he can function in a wide range of occupational areas. And I think I left out could not adapt to and function in a wide range of areas, because it says he could do especially well in creative, self-expressive, and sales work.
So that was just a mistake on your
Yes,
report?
that he can do a wide range of functions and different jobs.
Have you worked with Mr. Baird's office on other occasions?
Occasionally, yes, sir.
I think you testified, or didn't testify, but set off the record that Mr. Baird has an office right over here by yours, a satellite office.
Yes, across the street. I've never been in it, but I know it's there. In fact, a few years ago, the reason I know it's there is because a few years ago, I was looking for office space in that building, and I saw their name on the board downstairs.
Would you agree with us that Tony should do whatever he can do to get himself back in the employment realm?
I would recommend vocational rehabilitation, and I believe that he certainly has the academic and intellectual levels to be able to return to work. I'm not a physician, so I can't comment on whether he should have surgery or not, but based upon Dr. Zerger's report, I think that he can do the types of work he's done in the past. I don't know from Dr. Gilbert what Dr. Gilbert feels that Mr. Bentley could do now and what he might be able to do following surgery. That wasn't in any of the records or reports that I reviewed. So, and there are a lot of people who elect not to have surgery, and the physician says, well, then you can do this level work. But I don't know that in this case with Dr. Gilbert and Mr. Bentley's situation.
What does vocational rehabilitation entail?
It depends. It's individualized for each person. Vocational rehabilitation can be anything from vocational counseling, where the counselor talks with the individual about what that person's abilities are and talks to that person about jobs that would comply with any physical work restrictions if that person has them. And it can also involve assistance with job placement and working with employers potentially on job accommodations. Vocational rehabilitation can also entail vocational retraining, going back to school. So it could also entail the public vocational rehabilitation program that exists in Kentucky and this nation can also pay for various types of therapy services and medical services. So it just depends on what the needs of the individual are, and they also rely upon other sources to pay for certain services, particularly medical services.
What do you charge for your vocational counseling?
Again, it depends on what the person requires, but typically about $150 an hour when I'm asked to do vocational counseling and assist with job placement.
If Tony was able to do heavy work before the wreck, and I think did not some of his prior employment
Yes, I think he operated equipment which would tend to be heavier, and he also indicated to me that when he worked at the steakhouse, he had to do a variety of jobs which on occasion could require physical activities.
Right, and operating a tractor trailer, a dozer, a backhoe, a bobcat, and welding, would that be considered heavy type labor?
That would be heavier work typically, yes.
Okay. If he could do it before the wreck, but can only do, I think, sedentary or light work, as you indicated, I think, on page 9 of your report, would that not be a decrease in his, would that not be a decrease in his employment opportunities?
Well, it would be a decrease if you're considering all the jobs that exist, and if you're saying, well, he can't do heavy work activities, then I would say, yes, that would be a decrease. I don't see anything along those lines in any of the records that I reviewed that would indicate that he can't do all the other types of things that he's done. I would also say that a lot of people can't do or don't do medium or heavy work activities and don't think that they have a loss of ability. to function. Most of us are not, we're not going to do construction labor or equipment operation, yet that doesn't typically worry us. So a lot of people can't do certain things, and they never consider that they have a loss of ability.
And heavy work, or even medium work. Medium work is defined as lifting and carrying up to 50 pounds with frequent lifting and carrying of 25 pounds.
That's the government definition of medium work.
Yes. Medium work. That's not even heavy work, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Would you agree that there could be other competent vocational or economic experts that might disagree with some of your opinions that you've given today?
I don't know if they would disagree. I would say there are certainly competent vocational experts out in the community.
Okay. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. That's all I've got.
The tests that you gave to Mr. Bentley, how long did they take, roughly?
Well, what happened with, and I'll answer your question, what happened with him is that we set up the evaluation, I think, for the date in that letter, which was the 12th at 10 o'clock, but he could only stay 2 hours that day. There was a miscommunication, because I think in my letter, our letter that we send out, we say the evaluation takes 4 to 5 hours, and somehow that got communicated to him as 45 minutes. So he had to leave at 12 o'clock. So he was here for 2 hours that first time, and then he came back 2 days later, and he was here for about another 3 hours. So I believe he was here for about 5 hours in total. When he came back on the, I believe it was the 14th, that's when I interviewed him. So we split it up, but he was able to certainly complete the testing.
Okay, based on that testing and also your face-to-face communications with him, did Mr. Bentley seem to have a problem concentrating or focusing?
No, he was able to answer all my questions. He was a good historian. In fact, he was very willing to give me information about his background, and he was very forthcoming about that. And he was very cooperative in doing the vocational test, and he did very well on those tests.
Now, as Mr. Liska pointed out here on page 6 of your report, just to be clear, you're telling us that this was actually a typographical error?
Yes, that's correct.
So how should that sentence actually read?
That none of Mr. Bentley's career theme scores indicate that he could not adapt and function in a wide range of occupational areas.
Okay.
And then it goes on the next sentence, he would do especially well in creative, self-expressive, and sales occupations.
Okay.
Which would be consistent with his the OSI work and with the sales work when he was working with Sony, and even the steakhouse work when he dealt with customers and vendors and employees.
In your interview with Mr. Bentley, did he report to you being on any type of medications?
Yes, I believe he indicated to me that he was taking medication, I believe for pain, muscle spasms, and stiffness, and I believe one of those medications is OxyContin.
Okay. Did you review any prescription records, I think, that my office had sent you?
Yes, and there are some restrictions on when a person uses OxyContin. It's a narcotic and a controlled substance, obviously, and is it has a reputation, and I certainly don't know, but it does have a reputation for being abused. So people have to be very careful with it. I'm not a physician, so I can't comment on or don't have opinions about any specific situations, but that might entail Mr. Bentley. But it is a medication that physicians have to advise people who take it against doing certain activities, such as operating equipment and any sorts of dangerous activities.
Now, at the time of this motor vehicle accident, what was the classification of the type of work that Mr. Bentley was doing for OSI?
He was doing jobs that would be on a light exertional level.
Okay. How is that defined?
Light work entails lifting up to 20 pounds on occasion, 10 pounds frequently.
Okay. Now, Mr. Liska actually said that you noted in your report that Mr. Bentley was restricted to sedentary or light duty work. You didn't actually, that's not actually in your report, is it?
No, I didn't see any restrictions about that. I gave some just, if he hypothetically can only do sedentary or light work, there are alternate jobs relating to the OSI work and similar work that he would be able to do. But I didn't see any specific restrictions regarding limitation to sedentary or light work.
Thank you, Mr. Chris. Have all the answers you've given me here today been based upon a reasonable degree of professional responsibility?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And Doctor, the same question. This has all been, all your opinions that you gave to me today were based upon a reasonable degree of professional responsibility
Yes, sir.
or probability.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.